Hello, welcome to Libby Says. I am your host, Libby. With August being National Breastfeeding Month, we are introducing a few special episodes called the Milky Spill, where we'll be spilling the proverbial milk only, because if you've ever breastfed, you know exactly what it's like to spill some milk. So we're not spilling the real milk, but we want to make sure that we give space this month to talk and share about breastfeeding, all that it is, the ups, the downs, and in the in-betweens. The U.S. Breastfeeding Committee has declared that this year's theme is Nourish, Sustain, Thrive. So grab your favorite pens and your notepad so we can get started. Today's guest is Taylor. Taylor is a social worker who is passionate about advocating for underserved populations with medical and mental health needs. She describes herself as a chronically fabulous dude. Her variety of chronic illnesses. I must be very transparent, as I always am. I didn't read all the way through this before now, and I love it. This is why I love the people I know, because yes, you are chronically fabulous. I cannot. It's so beautiful. She's also a wife, a dog mom, and most recently, a mama of an amazing 6-month-old boy. Welcome, Taylor. Way to get us started. I love you for that. How are you doing today?
I'm good today.
Good, good. So tell us a little bit more about your fabulous self. What do you enjoy? What do you like, dislike?
Recently, right now, I really love the Olympics. I'm kind of
Mhm.
glued to the sports that I absolutely positively could not do and don't have the coordination to do, namely gymnastics. I tried it when I was a little kid and I couldn't even manage a cartwheel. So, somersault was about where I stopped.
Mm, mm.
So I appreciate watching what I can't do, and namely eating while telling people that they should land things. It's a current hobby.
Yes.
Uh, Dislikes currently traffic.
Mm,
Um,
fair.
because school season is coming back and I don't like people driving at the same time that I drive, even though I know they have to get places. Not a fan. And I'm not a fan of people who don't know how to spell people's names and they misspell them over and over and over again.
Mm. Well, thank
The
you for
recent pet peeve.
sharing. No, and it's funny because I like to ask that question more than what do you like? And people are always kind of stumped by it. And I think it's helpful, especially when you're dealing with people. Like, I would rather know I don't say rather, but I'm also very interested in what you dislike, because if we're going to be working in community, I want to try my best to not upset folks intentionally. So thank you so much for sharing. I do hate traffic too. It's the worst. It's why I've been in my house. One of my girlfriends is like, "Girl, I haven't heard from you in forever." I was like, "Well, I normally call people when I leave the house. I haven't been anywhere because traffic is stupid."
Yeah,
She's like, "Fair enough." So your son is 6 months old.
correct.
So would you like to share with us anything about your golden hour after having the baby?
Um, well, first it was crazy. Namely because it's one of those like, holy crap, I just delivered a baby out of me, right? Like obviously I knew what I was doing, but it's still
Yep.
one of those weird things to like think about. Also at the same time, like you've got a bunch of people that are still looking at the bottom half of you while you're supposed to be having this beautiful moment up top and not being distracted. While there's people who are like, hey, we're gonna do this. And you just kind of wish they would just like be quiet for a hot minute.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but also it was like genuinely really cool because I had watched videos of the breast crawl before, but videos are one thing, seeing it in person, like live and happening is another thing. Like
Yeah.
this baby is like 2 cents old and is already figuring out like, got it. This is where I get my food because clearly I went through just as much effort, if not more than you did. Thank you. Please feed
Yeah.
me ASAP. Right? Like so it was really cool, one, to see like him doing that, but also to see my body responding at the same time and like being like, it's cool, I got you. Like, because meanwhile, I'm like mentally up here, like,
Mhm.
I don't know. Like, so it was really cool to see that like dynamic occur.
Yeah, I love it. Do you feel like you got enough time to have that experience with the breast crawl?
Yeah, because I think that everybody else, like I said, all the medical people were occupied with the lower half of me, so like they didn't pay attention to what was going on. So that was kind of helpful in a weird sort of way, like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
to
I
give
can
the
imagine.
time.
That's good. So, what types of feeding methods have you used in the past 6 months?
So mainly direct breastfeeding, and that's honestly because I hate pumping. Um,
Mm,
it requires way more equipment. It's a whole lot easier to just use my body. Um,
yeah.
I don't really have to remember to pack things when it's attached to me. Um, and then I pump when necessary, and he gets bottles from other people when needed. But
Okay. Got you. Do you have any specific products that you like that have been great for you on the journey? Spill the milk on that for us.
so the biggest one for me right now is nursing bras from Soma.
Hmm.
Um, One, I had a really good experience, which like that usually makes the product good in my opinion. Aside from it actually working, but like
Right.
use these things for months and they've been through washers and dryers, which I feel like I can never dry a bra, but theirs have been through a washer and a dryer cycle plenty of times and they're
Uh-huh.
fine. They've had I don't know how much spit up on them at this point and it's washed right out. Like, it's okay. The
Yes.
snaps have lasted, they haven't fallen apart. Also, they're one of few bras that I feel like lift up my boobs where they need to go, right? Like they look
Uh-huh.
very happy to be there kind of thing. Like I don't need things that make me feel like an old lady. So
Yes,
they're
ma'am.
perfect, they're easy. Um their snaps are really easy to get undone when my son is mad and wants milk ASAP. Like there's no
Hmm.
time lapse there, which I think he appreciates. Um
I'm sure he
and
does.
they fit me when I'm super full, which is a necessity because I don't need to be falling out when
Yeah,
I'm close to the mark of needing to feed him. So
absolutely. Any other?
yeah. The other one, so we recently went on a family trip and drove like 8 or 9-ish hours. So
Mm,
I was looking for something that I could keep milk in without having to replace a cooler every time we stopped with a bunch of new ice.
yeah.
So there's a product called Ceres Chill, um, which is nice because it can keep your milk cold for up to 20 hours. And they also have adapters that you can pump directly into the chambers, which is helpful so that you don't have as much stuff to wash when you get to where you need to. Because once again, I feel like pumping just has a lot of pieces and parts to it. And
Right.
the less I have to wash, the easier on me.
Hmm.
And yeah, it just makes life a whole lot easier.
I love your thinking. I love your thinking. Seriously. And so for the viewers, don't worry, you don't have to try to figure out how to spell any of that stuff. It'll be in the slides at the end of the video. So no worries. I mean, if you figured it out, go for it. And you might get extra points for being able to spell series because it's not the way you think it is, friends. Um, so, and I know that you've mentioned in the past, nursing tanks. How do you feel about those? How do they work for you? Or tops? How do you use those for yourself?
So I like nursing tops. I think that buying them at the beginning, right? Because like my intention is to nurse at least hopefully until he's one. So like I think since I bought them when I was like 2-ish months postpartum, they get enough wear, right? So I think I bought them early enough that I feel like I use them a lot. I personally like the ones that have the side split. There's ones that have a front split, but I think that they look really old and weird. Um, but other people's bodies, they fit great on. For my body, it really just kind of makes me feel like a potato, and I don't need a reason to feel like I'm a potato anymore. Like I want to look decent, and like if I wear something and I go out, like I want to at least sort of look nice, right? Like
No, it's a thing,
so
and I think it's hard because, like, even with being pregnant, like, I wonder sometimes what are manufacturers and designers thinking? I'm like, that's not cute. We
right.
still like you can be cute and pregnant. You can be cute in the postpartum. It's okay. And it's
Yeah,
wild
like
some of the stuff that is created. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'd have wore that in 1950. Like, don't do
yeah.
it to us. Yeah. So I hear you. I agree. They got to do better.
Or everything that's plain colored. Like, you know, I might not want to wear spandex and tights, like I got you, but like I also would like something that's kind of cute. I don't know.
Hmm.
It just seems weird to me.
It is just a smidge bit. So thank you. So I know that breastfeeding is not always easy and simple, but if you could share with us a few of like the most beautiful aspects of your journey this far, we'd love to hear it.
So I think for me, like one of the things early on, well, once he figured out how to open his eyes all the way, I suppose, to like, I don't know, a couple weeks, like the coolest thing to me is the amount of eye contact that he does when he's nursing, like, and it's like obviously, right? Like he's like, "Oh yes, food." But it's like you can clearly tell that there's a connection and
Yeah.
like he almost requires, unless he's doing this whole like sidetrack thing that he loves to start now where he cares about everyone else's conversation, but like then he's not really eating. But like when he's actually paying attention in nursing, especially like first thing in the morning and at nighttime,
Hmm.
is the amount of eye contact that he makes.
Hmm.
Like, and you can tell that he's just like very invested and very into it. And it's like, I don't know, it's like super, super beautiful to me. Like, I don't know how else to explain it to people other than it's just like this immense, like, feeling of like love and joy. And like, you can just tell that like he's in the moment. So it just
That is
makes me be
beautiful.
in the moment. Like, it's a very nice moment. And then also, I think for me, like, I don't know, like in my bio, right? Chronically fabulous. Like, my body generally is not very nice to me. And like,
Hmm.
in pregnancy, it was super nice. Like that's the healthiest I've ever been. It's an ongoing joke with
Yes.
all my doctors that like maybe I should eternally stay pregnant because my body loved me so much pregnant. Um, but like going into it, I was really concerned that like maybe my body likes me pregnant, but it won't like doing breastfeeding. But like
Hmm.
so for me, like having all these like chronic health issues, like being able to breastfeed and for my body to do what he needs is just a really, really cool thing for me. Like in it, not even like as just a general thing, but like on a daily thing that like hey, we did this again today. Like, and yeah, it's been 6 months, but it's still cool every day that I'm like, ooh, my body did it again.
Yeah.
Like,
It's pretty miraculous, I would have to say. Um, have you had any troubling aspects that you feel that community should know about and consider and keep in mind when they're thinking of their journey or supporting other folks on theirs?
cluster feeding is no joke. Like, the beginning was kind of rough. Like, the whole, and it doesn't matter, I guess, like how much I had read about it or how much I'd been told about it, but like the initial like nipple pain and soreness that goes along with like cluster feeding, like I don't know if there was a way I could have mentally prepared myself other than to continue reading about it and like
Mhm.
to hear from other people when I voiced that it was a problem that they were like, "Oh yeah, that's normal." Cuz like it doesn't seem like the lovely internet, right? Like based on the way the internet tells you like if you start having pain, you're doing something wrong or your kid's doing something wrong. They don't ever like talk about it's just an adjustment. Like and there are things that can help, like during the adjustment. But if it feels that way long term, there's a problem. But like
Yeah.
nobody talks about that, like that adjustment to like, hey, usually, right? I always for most people, you don't have someone latching onto your nipple 12 times a day pre having a baby that breastfeeds. So
Yeah.
obviously it's gonna feel different. But like I said, I don't know if like just there seems like a lapse of like stuff
There's a
there.
spectrum and an understanding, like, and I feel like I talked to a lot of people about this in the fact that when we say pain, like we ultimately always like think of the most severe pain, right? And I think sometimes people just don't have the vocabulary, or I mean, you just had a baby, so nobody's mad at you for not having the vocabulary. So you probably have it, you just can't find it. But uncomfortable, uh it feels different. It's not my normal breast sensations is probably more accurate for most people during that time versus it just hurts. Um, because I'm not gonna say there's not any amount of discomfort, but I think when we think of hurting, we think of pain, we think of something that's chronic, we think of something that needs Tylenol, we think of something that's gonna stop us from doing the everyday things. So I think that's your assessment is fair. There's that spectrum of understanding that a lot of people really do not discuss because especially if it's your first time and you don't have quality support, it becomes this whole like, well, if it hurts, then don't do it. Like then that means that you don't need to be doing it. See, that's why you don't do it because it hurts. And I'm like, no, we're not like talking about this kind of pain. If it feels like that, yes, please stop, call somebody. Like we don't want that. If you're throbbing, if it's burning, if it's, oozing, there's a whole lot of things to consider. But, you know, your general like, oh, I just kind of bumped into the door 10 times today. Like that kind of feeling like, oh, I should probably take it easy. pay attention to the door a little bit. But yeah, there's a spectrum of understanding and vocabulary there and really describing what that sensation is because I would believe that more times than not it's the discomfort in the shift or the transition as you said. Um, so talk to us a little bit about your choice to breastfeed. What resources did you have and supports did you have in making that decision and then carrying it out thus far?
So I think like a big part of my decision, to be perfectly honest, was I kept seeing the formula shortage and how much formula cost.
Okay.
And doing the math just didn't add up to me. Like it just seemed like a lot. Like,
Uh-huh.
you know, might as well see if my body can do this because if it can, I'm saving a bunch of money, which is kind of irony because I feel like anybody I talk to who breastfeeds jokes about the fact that like you might save money on formula, but you spend so much other stuff because you breastfeed that it probably actually equates. But I mean, and it does like if you calculate the time you spend, the time you
Oh
spend
yes.
is definitely significant as can be. Um, Especially given like the whole, oh, he slept, that's cool. Now I have to wake up because if I don't, I'm gonna be the one who's kind of punished for it. But you know,
Mm-hmm.
like so I probably spend just as much, but I'm not spending it on formula, right? Like instead I have all these cool tools that take up lots of space in my house, but it's lots of fun. Um, so that was a large part of it. Also, like I knew that my mom breastfed me, but I guess I never asked the question of how long she breastfed me. So she was
Okay.
here like 2 weeks ago, and she told me that she breastfed me 10 weeks and then gave up when she went back to work because she hated pumping. And the pumps back then were obnoxiously loud.
Oh my God.
So she was like, there was nothing private about me pumping in an office. She was like, it was terrible because all you heard was,
And they're like a
and
big
she was
huge
like,
box. Like it was like a
yeah.
case of diapers. It
Yeah,
was
so she was like, the
horrible.
pumps were terrible. There was no way I was gonna do that. So it's just funny because like originally, like I said, like my big goal was like, well, my mom breastfed me, like I'm gonna try it. And then I was like,
Yeah.
by the time she told me that she'd done, I'm like, oh, I've breastfed 2.5 times longer than you have already. Like, okay. Weird
Yeah.
how we like set these goals when we don't actually have like the extent of knowing how long somebody did it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, I mean, that was it. And then, like I said, the other part of it was really just let's see if my body can do this. And if so, cool. And if not, there's really no harm in trying kind of a thing. I mean, I had read a lot, at least about like initially with colostrum and how good the benefits were that. So it was kind of like one of those, let's at least do this. And then once I did that, it was all right, let's make it, see if we can make it a month and then, you know, and so on and so forth. Um, because I think my big goal has always been to make it to a year, but I've always made like tiny, tiny goals along the
Right.
way just to kind of see where I'm at. As far as support, aside from my mom, and then I have a cousin who attempted to breastfeed, but her body did not respond well to breastfeeding, so
Mhm.
it was short-lived for her. But aside from them, I have no friends who have breastfed or attempted to breastfeed,
Okay.
either because they didn't want to or their babies came early and their milk never came in, and by the time it did, they were already set with a routine with formula. So I took a breastfeeding class at through Ohio Health. But it was 3 hours and it was jam-packed with a lot of information and it was insanely overwhelming. It was a lot, just
Sorry.
it's hard to explain breastfeeding in 3 hours to some, you know,
Yeah.
like if you've never done it, getting a book about everything you supposedly need to know in a 3 hour course in your third trimester is just really a lot, especially when it's like at 6 p.m. Like my brain shuts off pretty much by then. So it
Yeah.
was just it was really hard to digest. Um, so I got information about a lactation consultant, and we did a meeting beforehand during my third term where I could like actually ask a bunch of questions, and it was like based on what I wanted, not just general statements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then we met a couple times after he was born to like do weighted feeds and talk through introducing a pump and those types of things,
Right.
which was way more helpful.
Good. Good, good, good. So, do you feel like at any point in time, and I want you to think through pregnancy, through your stay in the hospital, your postpartum visits, babies visits, do you believe that like race or ethnicity had any bearing on the types or levels of support that you did or didn't receive?
I mean, I don't think in the hospital it probably did. I mean, the lactation consultant came in, I think, twice when I
Okay.
stayed there. Um,
Your
and in the
lactation
hospital,
consultant or the one they had on staff?
the one they had already in the hospital.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, he latched really well in the hospital. So I mean, she came in and was just like, "Oh, he's doing great. Do you have any concerns?" And then that was pretty much it. Like there wasn't a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, other than like a lovely like right one page handout of like this is how much a baby should poop and like those types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like generic of like this is ideally how many times babies should feed, like that kind of paperwork. And
Yeah.
then she gave me, I don't know, some cream that he absolutely did not like. One of the like nipple creams that's
Okay.
not coconut oil that you told me about. Um, but every time he tried to latch after it, he gave me a face like this is the terrible thing. So like I used it twice and was like, clearly he doesn't like this stuff. So like whatever, it's not happening. But that was really it. So I didn't really have a lot of information. I mean, they didn't really offer a lot, but I also didn't have any questions either. And I
Okay.
think a lot of it was because I had already had a lot of information. Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and plus I just, I mean, we're learning each other, right? So like we
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of experience doing these things. And so I think that a lot of the support that I got was actually after I left the hospital. And I do think, I don't know that it played in the support, but I do think it was more than helpful to have a lactation consultant who looks like me because she also just knew the nuances when we explained stuff that would go on with like comments we got from people or
Yeah.
things that they said that she was easily able to understand family dynamics and like cultural issues and things that might come up.
Mhm.
And so she had suggestions and ideas for those types of scenarios.
Wonderful.
Um, Plus, since I like in my like family orbit and friends like don't have anybody that looks like me who's done this, it's nice to have other people who look like me who have also pumped and breastfed and had this journey with their own kids
Mm-hmm.
because it makes it possible. Obviously, I know it's possible, people have
Yeah.
done it, but it's just that extra of okay, you've been from the same community as me, you look like me, like we have
Yeah.
similar experiences, and you've been able to achieve this.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, you played sports as a child. I was a cheerleader in the early 90s. And in my communities, like, there weren't brown cheerleaders, there weren't black cheerleaders. And I made the team, and it was really weird. And then I met other black cheerleaders from across the city, and I was like, oh my God, I really can do this. Like, this is normal. Like, I do belong here. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Like, so not that that is, you needed validation for that, but it's so important, like the representation within the like the work, the industry, from having not only friends, family, coworkers who look like you who have breastfed, but also lactation consultants and IBCLCs, lactation educators that look like the community really does freaking matter. Like so
Well,
much.
especially with the history of Black people and breastfeeding, right? Like
Mhm.
literally it was our job to breastfeed not just our kids but everyone else's kids, right? Like that was a whole entire role, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, your milk's not good enough, switch to formula. Like, and you had a whole generation who like firmly believed that like their milk really wasn't good enough and formula was it. So it's just like one of those like take back things, like
Yeah.
amongst many other things, but like that's just one of those moments. So like it just emphasizes, I don't know, to me at least, like why it was that much more important to like attempt this. Like
Hmm.
once again, and I tell people all the time, like literally no diss to formula at all, but it's just like I what I make is good enough for my child. That's literally why I make it, right? Like
It is.
it's this
It
thing that literally changes. Like I don't know, like I'm not a huge science person, but the science behind breast milk is just intensely crazy. And like sometimes that's what I look up in the middle of the night, right? Like I'm just like this science is nuts, but it's awesome that like
it's beautiful.
literally it's like, all right, cool, your kid needs this many ounces. They'll continue to only need this many ounces. Why? Because your body just like is like a little bit more of this today, or a little bit more fat today, or can sense a cold coming. Let me send them some of your immunity. Like what? Like
Yes. I think it's the craziest beautiful thing in the world because of all of that. Like, you know, every time either of my boys were sick, oh, give them here. You think he has a fever? Hand him to me. And people are like, "What? We're gonna fix this. I've got what he needs." I mean, the only thing, like, we barely use Tylenol. I'm a little frustrated that breast milk doesn't help with allergies, but we're gonna figure it out. Maybe it's because I have allergies too, so we just can't fix that. Um, but like using Tylenol, teething wasn't an option. He was sick one good time, like really sick one good time. And there was another time where he had a fever. And I just both times I was just like 24 hours just nursing, like, keep doing this. Keep doing this. This is what we're going to do until this thing is over and it's gone because our bodies make exactly what our children need. And it's crazy because it's not even about the biological relationship, right? So if we think of wet nurses during slavery, they were nursing children that weren't theirs. And
Mhm.
those children, it's like the saliva gets into the pores of the person nursing, and then the body goes, "Oh, okay, all right, no, we know what to send you. Got it." Like, it it's just so miraculous. So, and I agree, like, it can be really hard to kind of shift the mindset of those in our communities because for a long time, not only were we told or made to believe that breast milk wasn't enough, right? Oh, you need more of this, or there's this missing. I mean, I guess we can add more DHA, but do they really need more than what's already there? I mean, are you trying to grow a super baby? I don't, I really am unsure. But also, there was the stigma around breastfeeding, right? Because of the fact that many of our ancestors were feeding other people's children and were almost forbidden to feed their own, if I have my history correct. And you just pass that down like, oh no, we don't do that. Oh no, we don't do that. But we do. And we're gonna. Thank you very much. And so good for you for taking that back for yourself and for community. Um, So do you feel in the past 6 months, you've had everything that you've needed for you to be nourished so that you can nourish your baby and sustain your well-being and thrive during this time?
Slowly over time, yes.
Okay.
Um, I think it's just like one of those like figure out games. And I mean, I live by like these massive cups of water, mainly because this one fits in my cup holder, right? Like I don't need the
Mhm.
big cups that don't fit in my cup holder. That's no longer convenient for my life. Like I have things to do and places to go. So like if it doesn't fit in a cup holder, I cannot use it. But
I'm
also I
laughing
need
'cause I got one of
something
those
bigger
big
than
jugs
like,
back here that doesn't fit in my cup holder.
yeah.
I love
Like
that
when
thing.
I only was at home, it worked. But like now that I have like visits and things for work, like I need something that I can literally carry the whole time. Like
Right, yeah.
so I need one of those. And like the little water bottles don't do it anymore because I down those in like 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Um, but I think like it's learning, I mean, like everything else, what works and doesn't work for you. Because once again, like the internet is like the best friend and the enemy at the same time, right? Like the internet
Mm.
will have you buying 10,000 products that you think give you more milk in your body. Um, and really you've just wasted hundreds of dollars for no reason.
Mhm.
Um, when I don't know, as long as I drink enough water, like I don't need any fancy drinks and water
Mhm.
comes out of my faucet once again for free. Like, right? Like I don't need to spend a bunch of money on
No,
like
I just love
this
her.
type of water and this
I just
types
love
of
her because
water.
she's great.
Like, and I don't know, like
No, you're right. It comes out of
I
your
guess good
faucet for free.
kudos
It's
to
just
my son who gave me a craving for oatmeal when I was pregnant because I hated oatmeal before. And like now I can't like oatmeal is a staple in my house for breakfast. And then
mhm.
I like read, I don't know, probably a month into it that oatmeal was great for breastfeeding. And I joke now that like he was just ordering up his good breast milk like the whole entire time during pregnancy. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just like, I'm just getting used to it so that you know what I need.
But
But then
also getting
hilarious.
you used to it because it's what you're gonna need, right? Like, see, once again, we talk about this chemical, all this sciencey stuff, like, there's
It's
something to that.
yeah. Like he knew. Like, and then there are sometimes that I read things that are like, this will help with breast milk, and I totally just let it fly. Like I read the Oreos are helpful. Oreos have never actually helped my milk supply. However, I really like Oreos, right? So like I just keep saying they're good so that we keep them in the house. But like whatever works. If he watches this, too bad. This is why we keep Oreos in the house. Oreos do, if you look at the ingredients though, have sunflower lecithin in it. I don't know how
Mm,
much, but they do have it in there.
okay.
So I guess that's where people got it from. But I just like Oreos, so it's a win-win to me. It's I feel like it's no harm, right, for me to eat 2 Oreos a day and say what the heck. But
It's all right. We're here for it. You're allowed to. Um, I really hope that your hubby doesn't watch because I don't want his feedback on my post-production at all. I'm not that girl. I don't do like I am good with receiving constructive criticism for stuff that I know well. I don't know this techie stuff a whole lot well. So your hubby and my partner, Lord Jesus. I don't want either of them to go, well, you could have, and I'll just start crying like I'm not good. I know. It's so we'll both
that's
be
when you say,
praying.
y'all stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine. Thank
It
you,
was
because I'm sure you couldn't do my job and I just won't do yours.
that part, that part. But so we'll both be praying that he won't be watching and learning about the Oreos. And if he ever asks me, I'm like, yes, there's sunflower lecithin in it. Bro, come on.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah.
So, um, uh, we talked a little bit about representation. Do you think that it has in fact impacted your journey? You've mentioned that your lactation consultant looks like you did this. Any of those who supported you at the hospital were those CLCs people of color? Don't
No.
make that face.
It's one of those fields, right? Like where you're like, it's no different than when you explain with cheerleading, right? Like when I grew up playing soccer,
Yeah.
like I don't know a better term for this, so sorry, but like we used to play spot the black people, like because it was so rare. And when we did, we always played the same position. Like that was my favorite on every team. It seemed like we always played the same position. And
Mm,
in every game, when we'd get next to each other, we'd be like, we'd actually introduce ourselves, and then like we'd
how
play the
you
heck out of
doing?
each other. But like it was one of those things, like how the heck? Like we knew each other our whole life. Like
No, I mean we did
it
the
just
same
seems like
thing.
one of those fields, and I don't know, because that's one thing I haven't looked up the stat for. Maybe you know it, but like, what percentage of that role is actually black across the U.S., right? Like, even like, I mean, I'm a social worker. Like, the fraction of social workers that are minorities is tremendously increasing, but like, is still statistically supremely low when the
Right.
majority of people we serve are minorities.
Yeah. In comparison, it's not that it's not significant. And I know that, here in Columbus, there's a couple of groups that are working to support people in becoming lactation educators, which is not the same as CLCs, but they provide a good level of education on breastfeeding and they can support families to a certain extent. And those organizations are led by Black women. And I wish, oh my God, I don't know why I can't think of them off the top of my head. I didn't think to note that. But I will figure it out and I'll put it in the end notes here. But it's always really impactful to me to watch people in our community have positive breastfeeding experiences because we lack so much of the representation. We are less likely to be offered information during pregnancy or prompted to begin the journey of breastfeeding. We are less likely to be expected to breastfeed when at the hospital and less likely to receive support from folks at the hospital. And then in the postpartum period, as long as your baby's healthy, 9 times out of 10, your pediatrician and your OB or your midwife, well, I won't say midwife because midwives have a whole different philosophy, but usually your OB is not going to ask you anything beyond, how's breastfeeding going? And they may not even say breastfeeding. They'll be like, how's feeding going? are you still breastfeeding? And then you'll say yay or nay, and then they'll just go on. And if you say no, I'm struggling with it. Oh, that's too bad. That happens. You were gonna give me
Thanks
more?
for the support.
Thanks. That's all I get. I know it happens. Now, what are you going to do to help me to get around this curve? Like nothing. So, once again,
Yes,
representation.
that's true because I will say, and I mean, I shout out, like, I think my OB is great, and I think
Mhm.
that his pediatrician is great because why?
Yep.
She was my family doctor, so that's how I found her. So obviously, I like her enough. But like,
Yeah.
neither one of them, like, they did ask breastfeeding, and I mean, he's gaining weight just fine, right? He's
Mhm.
growing fantastic. So like, they didn't ask any further questions, but it was never like, would you think to talk to a IBLC? Right? Like that question was never mentioned. It was never let me give you these resources. Um, they didn't even ask if I had had one, like, right? Like, so that part wasn't even a conversation.
Yeah. Like when we left the hospital with our youngest, they were very concerned in making sure that we had a pediatrician and we had a pediatrician appointment and follow-up as they should be. But no one was like, and because you're breastfeeding, let's make sure that you have an IBCLC or a CLC to support you because his nutrition is really important because he was a preemie. Like that was never ever said to me. And I know white women who've had that. So it's like, I mean, we know what it's about. It's systemic racism. It's embedded into the systems of our society, unfortunately. So, but I think what makes me so excited is like you have sustained yourself through this journey without that major, representation. And trying to find it in some spaces can be a little undaunting because, like you said, like social media and the internet is like a toss up. Like, is this going to be healthy for me to be in this rabbit hole or not? But we yearn for that because, and it's not just us, we all do. People of all backgrounds are like, want to be represented in the things that they are engaging in, purchasing, et cetera, et cetera. So it's only fair and right that it should be far more fast than what it's been. So this one is always um fun because I got stories myself. What has been your experience with breastfeeding in public?
So it really depends on who I'm with. Um, like, and I guess kind of where we go. Like, if we're at a restaurant,
Okay.
um, like I like to sit in booths mainly because like my kid is really long and like breastfeeding him in a chair means
Oh.
I have to do a lot of balancing that I
Mhm.
don't have to do in a booth. Like in a booth, right? Like I can put my leg up or do whatever to kind of contort myself how I need
Yep.
to. So that he's not flinging everywhere since he can move now, which makes it all the more interesting. Like, but I mean, even then, I guess it just depends, like where I'm at. So, like, if I'm in a restaurant and like it doesn't, aside from like if I'm with my dad, I usually always cover because I just feel like to me that's a weird thing because it's my dad. If
Okay.
it's anybody else, I could care less. But he's the only family member I feel like if it most of the rest of our family is female. So like if I'm around female family, like if you're uncomfortable, you can probably get up and leave, but like it's not phasing me any. But like if we're at a restaurant and I notice the table left to us is a bunch of teenage boys, I'm probably gonna cover. Why? Because teenage boys are completely immature. It has nothing to do with my son. It has everything to do with them just acting weird. Like,
Yeah.
and so it's one of those things. But like I did that last week and right, like flinging child. So like he likes the eye contact thing. So like last week he decided he was done and what did he do? He just ripped it off his head. So like
Mm-hmm.
he decided he was over it. I don't blame
Yep.
him. I don't like to eat with blankets on my face either. Not really my favorite. Um so most times I just direct feed him and like it's just a thing. Because also that's why I like nursing tops, because then I don't have to feel like I'm like taking my shirt off just to feed him. Like it's
Yeah, absolutely.
much space. And I'm gonna be honest, like if people have seen anybody in the summer who's female, like they probably show more skin than I do feeding him
Right?
because he cares about eating his food. Like he's not just leaving my chest dangling out. Like he's very intentional. Like he's
Mhm.
hungry, he wants food. Um, so they're probably seeing less skin on me than anybody else. And if they think it's weird, that's kind of their problem because he needs food. What am I gonna do? Be like, oh, hold on until I'm done eating and I've left a public place so that I can take you somewhere to scream.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
That seems weird. Like if we're shopping, like also last week, this was all the same day. We were doing a lot in a day. We were at TJ Maxx and I accidentally went on tax-free weekend, which means the line was like insanely long. So I was with a friend. So she took our stuff to the checkout and I took him to the fitting room. Why? Because once again, like it was easier for us.
Yes.
Sitting in a fitting room was 10 times easier than trying to nurse him while waiting in a checkout line.
Mm-hmm.
Could I have done it? Probably, but also it just sounded stressful. So like I let her wait in the line and
No,
we went to the fitting room and had us a good time. Like,
absolutely. Works. I just wish
yeah,
that more um public spaces had better resources, right? Like
yeah.
it's just very frustrating that Walmart and Target don't have a breastfeeding.
Target is starting to.
What?
Certain Targets now have breastfeeding rooms. Yes. Like not even just use the fitting rooms. And I think there's a couple in Columbus. I'll have to look. I have them written down. I
Oh,
know there
write them.
are a few.
Yes, so I can share
Um,
them because that's great.
yeah, in Columbus that actually have them. Also, the Columbus Zoo has by far the best room I've ever nursed in. It's
Okay.
heated and they actually have two. I've only went to there's one back in the further part by like carousel. But at least that one is heated and has air conditioning. It has a full sink with like a very long counter so that if you pump, you can easily exchange stuff, wash parts and all that. And they have a rocking chair and a bench in there. So that is
Okay.
still my favorite space to be in is the one in the zoo.
Yeah, well, and that's great, but there's just like I feel like I bet out in California, it's just perfect. California is just advanced in all the things. They're ahead of us because they're close to Japan. I just feel like they're ahead of us and the rest of the country by so many measures on so many things. But it's still surprising to me that, um, heck, you can go to a restaurant and they don't even have a booster seat or a high chair. Like, let's get real, friends. I'm not talking a bar. I'm talking about a restaurant. That's that's odd to me. So we haven't even gotten that far to now. Like, no, there should be breastfeeding spaces in malls, in shopping centers, at your job. I love that I
Yeah.
used to have an office and that was great. And I had a classroom and that was fine. And for the most part, I didn't care. And I'd be like, yo, listen, if you come in here during these hours, just know that I'm breastfeeding. And if you don't want to see me, I mean, pumping, you don't want to see that happening, then go somewhere else. I don't know what to tell you. Get over it. I had one job where the room was probably could have fit a toilet in it. That's how small it was. Like that was it. That's all you're gonna get. You don't got much else. Maybe a
Mhm.
sink, maybe. I doubt it. Then another one was an old bathroom that they had just taken the toilet out of and put a very hard chair in there. And I was like, this is embarrassing. You guys shouldn't be embarrassed by this. Like, and the fact that they had labeled it the nourishing room. Well, no, this isn't it, friend.
This
Like,
is a bathroom without a toilet. Thank you.
what? And then the best part is like, it was an old building. So those old school like um paper towel dispensers that have the metal trash can underneath it. The trash can part had been pulled out. I'm like, y'all thought of
No,
nothing
no.
except for to take the toilet out. Thank you for taking the toilet out. So I just feel like society just needs to do, our country as a whole needs to do far better because it's not enough to just make sure you have a clean private space. Like, because clean and private can mean a lot of different things. Um, there should be some level of comfort and um ability to feel ease and be able to relax. Because if you can't relax, if you're not feeling comfortable, you're not going to be able to express enough milk. It's just what it is. I can't tell
Yeah.
you the number of times I was not able to pump because of the environment. I pump more milk in my truck than I would in some of these spaces. Seriously. And people are
I
like,
was gonna say I've definitely pumped in my backseat plenty of times.
oh yeah, it's comfortable. If
Got the
it's,
AC on and the
yep,
music that I like to listen
yep,
to. Yep.
absolutely. I know this terrain. This is good. This is fine. People are like, oh, you don't have to pump outside. I'd rather.
Right.
Thank you
No
though.
thanks. We're good here.
Thank you. I appreciate you so, so much. Um,
Hmm.
so I love a good old myth buster. Do you have any breastfeeding myths that you heard while you were pregnant or even on this journey so far that you were like, absolutely not, that is not true, that is not real, that you want to bust right now?
Yeah. One is right, that lovely cluster feeding time. Like your baby's clearly not getting enough milk from you because they need to nurse all the time. Um, like, no, this is actually fact proven. Thank you. Like you could Google this before you said something to me and you might have found your answer. But that I think is one of the biggest ones for me initially.
Hmm.
Like, or I mean, I guess through it too, right? Like we've talked about, like breast milk is good for a lot of things. So, like if my baby's teething, they might want to nurse more. Why? Because their teeth freaking hurt and they want their anti-inflammatory and their med is natural. Thank you. Like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
just how it's gonna be. Like, or you're making my baby really uncomfortable, so they want to be comfortable. Maybe if you backed up, they'd actually be all right, right? Like
Hmm.
those are
Hmm.
just situations he's just responding to. It doesn't mean that he's like my body's not doing what he needs to or he's not getting enough. Like, and in fact, this is why I have a consultant to tell me my body's doing what it needs to. So like
Yep.
unsolicited advice. And I guess the other one that I like right now that like some babies sleep through the night. That's fantastic for you.
Um,
Um, like my baby doesn't need formula so that he sleeps through the night. Like
I
I'm
know
not gonna
folks who
douse
gave
him
their
with a bunch
babies
of milk
formulas and
so
they
that he
didn't.
sleeps through the night. Like, or like formula, go name your token thing that people
Yep.
think your baby needs in addition to the breast milk so they sleep through the
Hmm.
night. Like,
Hmm.
I'm okay with him waking up once in the middle of the night to get some more milk and go back to bed. One, because that means I don't have to pump, which reminder, like I can't stand pumping. Like I have it down to pumping once a day unless I
Yeah.
have to be away from him for longer than 3 hours. And I like it that way. Like, so this method works really well for the both of us. Thank you.
Hmm.
You're not in the
Hmm.
middle of the night. It's fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're accurate on all the things. And yes, you can Google them, friends. I think that's what is so weird to me about some of these myths that people have, especially the whether it's just cluster feeding or feeding in general. Like if someone thinks that the baby is feeding too much, that means they're not getting enough. I mean, they got what they needed at that moment, and then they came back. It's like a smorgasbord, friends. It's like Thanksgiving dinner is what it's like. We make all of this food, we serve it at whatever time we say we're going to serve it at, and then it's just there until everyone leaves. And if it's your house, it's still there. And you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you have a turkey leg and you eat a piece of pie. And then the next day, you're like, huh, we still have this good food. I'm going to keep eating it because it's right here.
That's actually a really good example too, because it's like, once again, right, the lovely internet. Like, sorry, my kid doesn't wait 3 to 4 hours to eat all the time. Like, he's the kid that does 2 to 3. And guess what? He's growing and it's okay.
It's okay. He's not
So some
starving.
people are that whole like I'm gonna eat all of my meal and then wait until it's the next meal. And some of us
Mhm.
are the ones who like I'm gonna eat a meal, but then also like I have a little bit more space, so like I'm gonna totally take this snack right now, thanks. And
Oh,
then I'm
yeah.
gonna eat a meal later, like and it's okay. Like everybody's baby does not do the same thing. Like
Mm. I love
no
a good
different than when we're
snack.
grown, we don't all do the same thing. Like I'm a snacky person, so like he's just totally stealing that from me. It's fine.
It's okay. You're doing fabulous, if we haven't told you already. Fabulous. There's nothing wrong with that little guy or you and your methods. I know you know this, but I'm just going to say it again because Everyone should hear it a few times a day. So, as we continue to move through National Breastfeeding Month, and we reflect on this year's theme of nourish, sustain, and thrive, do you have any words of wisdom or recommendations that you would share with the community on how to support and advocate for breastfeeding?
Just stop looking at it like it's weird. Like that's the best thing. Like it's literally like one of the most natural things that a body can actually do. And I feel like it's just like to me it should be normalized. Like I just it's normal to people to be like, all right, what formula is your baby on? So why is it not also normal to be like, hey, your baby takes breast milk? Like, how can I help you? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you might not be able to run to the store and buy my breast milk or pump for
Nope.
me, but like you can certainly do something else to support me. Like get me a snack, right? Because like we've talked, like I snack lots. Like I live by
Yeah.
snacking. Or like if you're at my house, like ask if I need my water refilled. Like just don't make it weird. And I mean, I think of that too, like breastfeeding in public and all these other things. Like just don't make it weird. I think that's probably the best line I have for it because it's like people all the time, well, if someone's feeding their baby, what do I do? Stare at my face like you would if we were having a normal conversation. What do you mean? Like
If I
I
were
just
eating a
are you telling
steak
me
right
that you were
now, what
staring at
would
my
you
boobs the
do?
whole time you talked to me when I wasn't feeding a baby? I'm confused. Like just literally don't make it weird. Like that's the best way to be supportive. If you want to know how to help me, ask how to help me. Like and
Mhm.
otherwise, like if somebody seems like they're struggling and stressing about it, like if you know resources, share resources, right? Like I didn't know how much insurance paid for this stuff until somebody told me how much insurance paid for this stuff. I
Mhm.
didn't know that insurance was going to cover a lactation consultant until I got to her website and it said that she took my insurance. Like I thought I was going to have to pay for it out of pocket. Why? Because I didn't know anybody who had done it before, so I didn't know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
But it's like, use your insurance. Like you literally pay for it all the time. You might as well use the benefits you get with
Use
it.
it.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like do I necessarily need pumping bags every month? No. Do I get them every month?
Yes.
Yes, because insurance pays for it. I just, like imports and all that good stuff. Like, and make sure that you talk to people about if you're gonna pump, like, make sure you talk to people before you pick your free pump about like which ones they actually liked and didn't like. Because it was super overwhelming to see. I don't even know how many pumps my insurance either paid for fully or paid a part of, but
Yep.
like, and to try to do the research myself, I gave up and I just talked to people about like, which pump did
Mhm.
you like, right? And like, I ended up getting one. I think I had to pay $20, but like, it has a battery and it's rechargeable instead of being glued to a wall. Like, for me,
Ooh.
way worth paying $20 for. Like,
Yes.
so you know, it's helpful to use your resources to talk to people, to get linked to people, know that there are lactation consultants out there. Because like I said, until somebody told me, I didn't know that they existed outside of a hospital. um, which to me was kind of less stressful. Like I think if I would have had to go back for appointments afterwards and went to the hospital to take my son to do weighted feeds, it would have been a different thing because hospitals are just generally not my favorite place. So like going
Right.
to an office that's completely separate from a hospital and like has paint on the walls and like feels more natural and has couches, right? Because you talk about the environment is huge when you're
Yes.
trying to feed your baby that you want to be comfortable. So like I don't know that I would have had the same experience had I have used those services in the hospital, whereas
Mhm.
maybe that doesn't bother other people. But I think that just like being educated and knowing what's available is probably the biggest part of the battle because
Yeah.
I don't know that I would still be breastfeeding him if I didn't have the support that I had. I mean, because I think I wanted to, but also like sleep deprivation is real. So getting through that part
Mhm.
and like having people are like, well, once you get through this hump and once you get through, when things get regulated and whatever, like that made a big difference.
No, that makes perfectly good sense. And I think, you mentioned at the start of your response is like there's other things to do to help a breastfeeding person other than like a person who just had a baby. Let me say that. Other than holding the baby, right? Because, we had a really good rhythm. I feed the baby, you take the baby. I pump the milk, you clean the pump. People knew you come to my house, you're probably not going to touch my son, especially with my youngest one, because he was a preemie.
Yeah.
Because then you really probably weren't coming to the house. But if you were, you're probably not going to be touching him. You're going to be staring at him over the bassinet or looking at him while he's asleep on my chest or his dad's chest. That's what you're going to be doing. You can wash some dishes. You can, I don't even want you to fold my laundry, but if you could bring it up from the basement, that's really far more support than you can even ever imagine, or take it down to the basement. I hate it. It's the worst thing in the world. But especially with those who are breastfeeding, people forget that there's other things that can be done. And I will say kudos to you and your husband for, you know, towing the line. I would say towing the line, but like standing your ground on these are our expectations. These are the things that we need. These are the things that we desire. And if you don't want to do that, then great. You just won't be here. But if you're going to be here, this is what we need. I think that there was, I don't know if it was a client or another doula that I told about you guys' sign on your door. And they're like, Olivia, how did you get them to do that? I was like, I really firmly believe that in the postpartum space that people need to be very clear on what it is they need and they desire for their sanity. Because
Mm-hmm.
having a baby is wild. It just
Yeah.
is. And if you don't set the expectation, people will run you raggedy when you're already run ragged.
Right.
Like, if I say I'm not taking visitors, don't show up at my house. And then if I do say you are coming and you don't want to wash your hands because you washed your hands before you left your house, what did you just say? Or if I say, thank you, what would be really, could you bring me the sandwich out of the fridge? Oh, I'll take the baby. You can go get the sandwich. No, I just pushed this baby out of my vagina. What do you mean? I'm gonna sit
My
here.
favorite is like, can you help with the dishes? I'll take the baby so you can wash the dishes. And that's literally not the same.
What? And it's like to hear, I I wonder how many times people in other countries like hear this about the United States and they're just like, you guys are the problem. Like, it's not us. It's y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all are the problem. Um,
Well, because other countries have this whole model surrounded around let's support mom and get her back. Like, right? Like, I have a friend who, I mean, her son's only a couple weeks older than mine. And like, her mom came and she was like, you don't do this and you don't do this and you don't do this.
yes.
And I make this and I make that and I do blah, 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 blah. Like, and I was like, well, this sounds cool. I don't have any realm of reference for it, but it's cool, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, that's just completely natural in other communities. Whereas, like,
Yeah. It's
once again,
because
a
it's a
fabulous thing
cultural
here.
thing that we have lost connection with in us being this beautiful melting pot of the United States of America, right? I had one client who was Vietnamese and she wanted me to sit and talk with her mother because her mother wasn't going to be able to be there. And she wanted her mother to share with, well, let me rephrase this right. Her mother wanted to make sure she set the expectation of what her child was going to need culturally in the postpartum. And I loved it because it's exactly what she needed and deserved. And they were very serious about it. Her brother is, oh God, I can't remember what he does specifically, but he also had a background in using in with herbs and being an herbalist, and gave her this list of herbs that she needed to get and have at the house. And she's like, I don't know where to get these. I said, girl, I'm an herbalist. I know exactly where to get all this stuff from. I'll send you right to the right place. This is simple. She's like, oh my God, this is a godsend. I was like clearly. But there, like, most cultures, even in the African cultures, there's like a system and a way that they take care of and love and support people through the postpartum period. And and I'm not talking like just what seems to be fun and exciting of people have mommy celebrations and all that wonderful stuff. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But also, like staying in the bed for so long, only, being on your feet for so many hours. Like the community comes together with food. That's why I love meal train so much, is like, you shouldn't be cooking. I'm giving you at least 2 weeks. You just shouldn't be cooking.
And those mom parties, like, yeah, it's a good idea, but that means I still have to get out of bed, get dressed, and like make myself look presentable. Once again, just push out a baby. Like, I'm either in a diaper or massive pads right now. I don't want to be at the center of attention at a party.
No.
I would much rather like take a nap. Thank you.
And you all want to come over here and see the baby, and I don't want you in my house.
No, because germs.
Because
And I
germs,
just don't want to have to attempt to be presentable too. But like germs are real.
yes, that very. So I just think that I have so much hope in these coming years to see shifts and transitions when it comes to maternal care and support, especially through the postpartum period, because what we know in the Black communities is that the majority of the postpartum maternal deaths are happening related to postpartum depression and anxiety. And
Which
I
is
think,
something else I didn't know breastfeeding helped with until
oh
I read
yeah,
about it. And I was like,
oh
see,
yeah.
I help him, he helps me. It's a fantastic
Yeah, and
transition.
all of the other wonderful benefits of like the diminishing potential, reducing risk for several diseases. But when you think of mom, reducing risk for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, reducing your risk of having high blood pressure, and so there is what's called postpartum preeclampsia. So like diminishing all those risks as well as all the beautiful nutritional benefits for baby. And especially when we as a community have these higher rates of inductions and premature births, that nutrition is far better for the baby. And people can slander me later, formula is not the key there. The milk that you make is what's going to benefit baby far more. I'm not saying don't feed your baby. If you can't produce milk or whatever the thing is, that's okay. But also, if you have an option, that breast milk is the better option. It's kind of like Pepsi versus Coke. I won't say where I stand on that, but it's similar therein.
I don't
So,
drink either, but now I'll go with like Sprite versus Sierra Mist. That's whatever it is now,
mm.
since it's changed names. But
Is that who
Starry,
that
that's what it is
is
now.
that what
Sierra
happened?
Mist is now Starry. They rebranded.
I thought that there were now three clear sodas.
Nope,
Thank you
Sierra
for
Mist is no
educating
more.
me. See? Yeah, I don't drink. I try not to drink anybody's soda, but the summertime is when I let myself give in, and then I'm like, yeah, absolutely not anymore. So, well, I sincerely appreciate you for being here and joining us and sharing all of your tidbits and your experiences. Do you have any last burning thoughts or comments?
I don't think so.
Okay,
It's
cool.
it's
Yeah,
been real. It's been fun.
I'm glad.
I'm gonna
So
try to hit the twice as long as I've been process, but
okay.
I don't know. It's been interesting. I don't know. I feel like I learned new stuff every day, which is kind of cool, even though I've been doing it for months now, but
Yeah. And then you're going to learn
it's cool
something
to
else.
keep learning.
And yeah, and it's going to not only fuel you as you move forward, but it becomes all these wonderful nuggets that you then get to share with other people. Like get to become the representation in your community.
Yeah.
Okay? It's possible. It Positive breastfeeding experiences do and can happen on a regular basis. So let's normalize that, friends. So thank you so much for joining us. For the viewers, once again, there will be some notes in the credits. You will get information on the resources that were shared, as well as the ones that we mentioned that we couldn't think of on the spot will be listed as well. If you have questions or concerns and want to reach out later on, my information is following. I hate even verbalizing it because it makes people want to start writing it down. Don't do it. Just wait to see the slide. It's going to be up there, friends. So thank you so much for joining. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again soon for the next episode of the Milky Spill. Peace.